All right, hello. In this screencast, we'll be looking at the assignment that is really a critique of a practitioner journal article that is intended for classroom teachers of science. There's a couple of reasons that I want you all to do this assignment. One is it can be really frustrating looking for lessons on the internet. These lessons are all published. They've gone through the peer review process that we talked about the first week of class. Some of these journals have fairly low acceptance rates, maybe around 20-25%, which means 3/4 of the submissions do not get accepted and published. So these tend to be really good lessons for that reason, but not to say that they couldn't be a little bit improved, and that's part of the assignment, as you'll see. And so the second reason is really just to give you a better conception of what this sort of student-centered NGSS-based lessons look like, and each of these publications will be, for the most part, geared towards that. More so the top two journals that I list here in the list of possible journals. So your task is to locate a practitioner journal. I have a list here. The Science Teacher and Science Scope are the National Science Teacher Association journals. The Science Teacher is intended for high school level instruction, Science Scope for middle school level. I would probably recommend those two because that's the audience that they're geared for. If you want to get into subject specific, there are other journals for that reason. The Physics Teacher, the American Biology Teacher, the Journal of Geoscience Education, the Journal of Chemical Education. The one difference between those and the Science Teacher and Science Scope is those sort of content-specific ones. Oftentimes what you'll find in there are lessons intended for college level or higher education instruction. So not everything is going to be geared towards what you're looking for. So that said, I would stick to those journals. There are some other journals like Science Activities that may be appropriate as well, but these are a pretty safe bet. So what you'll be looking for are articles that really describe a teaching lesson. Okay, and so that's what these are. They're not articles about science. They're not articles just about education. They're about how to teach a specific content lesson. All right, so again, you can send this to me as we talked about last week. You can send this digitally, so I would like a copy of the article. They're usually around 6, 7, 8 pages long, not too long, but I realize you probably don't want to print that, so emailing me a copy of that is fine. I do want either PDF or Word file, not a link to the article. The second thing you'll send me is the reflection paper itself, which I'll talk about now, and then we'll take a quick look at the rubric. It's not intended to be a long, onerous assignment. 2 pages is probably the max of what I'm looking for. On occasion, people go to a 3rd page, but you shouldn't need to do that. All right, so this is not a book report. It's not a summary of the assignment. It's a critique, and I'm looking for specific things in that critique. So I'll be talking more about some of this in class and what the inquiry-based instruction looks like if you're not familiar with that, and posting some articles about it on Blackboard. So you'll have some information to go upon as you do these. All right, so there will be 3 sections in your paper: intent, strengths, and weaknesses, and I do ask you to make headings to that effect. The intent is really why the article was published, not so much why you think the author or authors wrote it, but why it was published. Again, keeping in mind that maybe 75–80% of these manuscripts get rejected. So what is it about this particular article that would get it through the peer review process and the editors would ultimately accept it for publication? So it may be that it's innovative. It could be a new twist on an old idea. It could implement some new technology. Whatever it happens to be, I want you to think about why you think it got published. And then you can give a brief summary of the article there. All right, and then in the strength sections, again, the focus here is on the extent to which the article describes a inquiry-based approach. Okay, so that's the lens that you're looking at these from. There may be other things that you like about the lesson, but you can limit your discussion to the extent to which it is in line with the inquiry-based principles that we'll talk about in class and will be in some of the articles that I'll end up posting on Blackboard. And then the same too with the weaknesses. Where are the areas for improvement? What would you do to make it stronger? Citing both specific examples and actually including some text from the article to justify your thoughts on that. Okay, so we can talk about this a little bit more in class, but again, 1 to 2 page double spaced. I do ask you to use 12 font, double space it throughout with 1-inch margins all the way around, and you'll see that that is reflected in the rubric, which does not look like that. It looks, whoop, doesn't look like that either. Looks like that. Okay, so there it is. Again, be looking for the appropriateness of the article. It is supposed to be from one of those peer-reviewed science education journals, not a website, not a science journal. It should be about a content lesson, not about a general article about an idea or theory. So if it's just about how to assess people in science ed, that's not what we're looking for. It might be a good article, but we're looking for how to teach about meiosis or how to teach about plate tectonics, something specific with content. It should be in your area of expertise, your field of licensure. So if you're looking to be a biology teacher, an article related to biology makes sense, right? I already talked about the format, so there it is there. Again, make sure you have the 3 sections. Try to limit it to 2 pages. If you feel like you got to go on to a 3rd page, feel free to do that. Occasionally people will try to sneak a 1-page in. I don't think it's enough to fully do the assignment and score well on it, so 2 pages is, I think, realistic. And again, provide a copy of the article. The critical thing in the intent is an explicit statement. So what I mean by explicit is just come right out and say, I think this article was published because, right? And so there's no guessing, no hiding what you're trying to say there. And then, a quick summary about why you think it was published. Strengths, as I mentioned before, one of the things that may happen here is you find that the article is really strong, and therefore it's probably not going to have as many weaknesses. So I understand that. You just have to do a really good job of justifying why you think it doesn't have any weaknesses, right? Okay, so in the strengths section, examples from the text. So again, you can use some of the text from the article, or you can summarize it, but be specific and include a few instances. So if you're saying it's really strong, you should be able to give me 2 or 3 different reasons why, or examples from the text of why it's strong. All right, and then a thorough explanation. So don't just give the example and then tell me why that's in line with inquiry-based instruction. All right, and then the final thing I want you to do in the strengths section of the paper critique is to use, there's 2 articles that Randy Bell and his then doc students wrote. I'm not sure which one I'll put up on Blackboard, but Bell will be in the list of authors there. It's either the Bianchi-Bell or Bell, Smetana, and Binns. They both are very similar. They go through 4 levels of inquiry, and we'll talk about these in class a little bit. But what I want you to do is think about what level either the entire lesson is in or different parts of the lesson, what level of inquiry it is as you go through it. All right, and then weaknesses, kind of the opposite of the strengths, right? And so these are parts of the lesson that you think are not very well aligned with inquiry-based instruction, and then what you would do, how you would change the lesson to make it more inquiry-based. Okay, so we'll talk about this briefly in the next class, but for now you can familiarize yourself with the assignment and with the rubric, and I'll post all this up on Blackboard. I will probably also in the same file on Blackboard put the Bell article so you can give that a read too. Okay, so we can talk about this next week in class briefly, but this should get you up to speed for now. All right, see you all next week.